Welcome to Reasons Why I Disown My Dad. Not that I need reasons to disown my dad, but also reasons why I went no contact. I have compiled an entire list of reasons. This is just number 4 of many. Reasons why I went no contact with him and the storyline behind it. I did try to put everything in chronological order. Majority of these first videos are just going to kind of try to warm up to the bigger stuff that kind of happens. And this is, the beginning stuff is just going to be more of a perspective on how I felt or how I even got into this mess, or the different situations that I was put in to get to the homeless aspect. Now, if you didn't know, or if you haven't watched the very first video, it kind of goes over some background, but I'll do a little brief background just in case. In 2017, I graduated high school, and then I immediately moved into my dad, who was in New Mexico, and then I moved to Texas where my dad lived. Lived with him until about COVID happened. A lot kind of happened in between then, but we're not going to focus on that. And then right as COVID was happening, we moved to Georgia, and then we became homeless together, and that's kind of how the situation happened. In today's episode 4, is did my dad treat me more as a wife or a daughter? So we're going to break that in today's video. But before we get into that, previously on Disowned Dad, this is our previous tier list. Just going to get full from here. So lock in, we're going to get into it and break everything down. Disclaimer, this is a video for my own benefit rather than anybody else. This is just to help me process things, and if it ends up helping you, great, good, love that for you. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I do not mind. I'm going to kind of break down to the times where he did treat me more as a wife, and then times that he did treat me as a daughter. I was mistaken as his wife a lot. Many of it was during the times when we were in the LDS church, whether there was a brother or sister, either mistaking us as a couple and then having to correct it and say, or mostly me having to correct it, either that or I'd shoot my dad a dirty look or a look of say, hey, correct them. And it would take much longer than I thought it should have. I think he kind of got a kick out of it because when he shaves, he looks a lot younger. So whether he looks young enough to be my husband or I look old enough to be his wife, that still feels weird to say. One thing I did note, and in comparison while breaking this down, is that I do have a stepdad who married my mom when I was 8. And ever since that has happened, anytime that I was introduced to somebody else, it was always clear to other people that I was his stepdaughter. Whereas I found in comparison, my biological dad, did not do this as clear-cut as he should have. In some situations he would. I think when it did benefit him to tell people that I was his daughter, rather than like letting people think that I was his wife. I just know that it felt weird, and in comparison, how long it took for both of them to introduce me as their daughter. Whereas my stepdad didn't take very long and was actually immediate, whereas my biological was very iffy. I found that in most situations, I acted more as a wife than a daughter when I kind of compare the two. Most of the time, one of the instances that comes to mind of how this might have happened was that I had actually come up to him because he was treating me more as like a little kid child than his daughter. Your mom will always see you as like the baby or something, whatever, that's fine. But it wasn't like that with my dad. It was, I'm gonna see you as a child because I didn't have the opportunity to interact with you as a child, and so I'm gonna treat you as a child now. And I'm not gonna let you have those adult responsibilities, nor am I gonna give you that freedom that an adult should, but under the guise of I'm trying to protect you, you're my child type of thing. But it didn't really feel like that. And when I did bring it up to him that I didn't feel comfortable with that, and I was like, hey, you need to treat me more as an adult because I am 18 or over 18, because this conversation did come up multiple times. And then he's like, you want to be treated as an adult? I'll treat you like an adult. And then he gave me bills to pay, and then he had me do a lot more chores. That wasn't really what I was talking about. I think it was more of like the emotional aspect of, hey, you can talk to me as an adult, not as a child. Not that I really minded the doing those adult things, because I knew that I'd have to do them eventually and rather get used to them now rather than later. So that wasn't really the problem. It was just his kind of attitude going towards it, that you want to be treated as an adult, I'll make it a punishment. rather than a learning experience, or as like him looking inward and working on himself, which we did have a lot of conversations of helping him work on himself, and it was a lot of me doing a lot of the work, honestly, than him, in my opinion, but more on that much later. I did also, as what I think is a wifely duty, is I did accompany him to VA appointments since he is a veteran. I got mistaken as his wife multiple times. There are definitely some situations where, like, yeah, I totally would help my dad if he was injured. But this is kind of where that gray area is, where, yeah, as a daughter, you can do that and it's not weird. But when you're doing that kind of stuff consistently and all the time, and then eventually becomes expected of you to just do those things, it starts becoming more of a wifely duty. And I don't really agree with that. So during the time that we were homeless, we were trying to get apartments, and we were trying to go through Section 8 housing. If you don't really know what that is, you can probably just look it up. Anyways, it has to go through him because it's under his benefits as a veteran. And I told him, I don't think I'm going to be able to get very far in these conversations because I am not the person who has this kind of access. I'm not the one with the VA benefits. You're going to have to provide that information and all this and that. And he's like, no, just call them. Just call them. That way we can, like, spread the net type of thing. And I'm like, okay, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. But so I called them, and they're like, who are you calling this on behalf for? And I'm like, my dad. And they're like, is he with you? And I'm like, yeah, but he's on another phone call. And they're like, well, we need him to call us, or like pass the phone to him because we have to verify his like information and all that. And I'm like, that's kind of what I thought. And most of the time I would end up just passing the phone. I couldn't really do anything except for just like make the call itself, and then like go through these hoops of like, who do I need to talk to? And then later on he would make me feel bad because I couldn't do anything. He would kind of put the blame on me of like, you can't do anything. And I'm like, what can I do? You brought me here. What am I supposed to do? You brought me here. You wanted me to be helpful? I don't know. Being treated as a daughter didn't really feel like I was being treated as a daughter. It felt like he'd introduced me as his daughter if it was convenient to him or to benefit him in a situation. Case in point, when we were homeless, we were asking bishops if they had like space or like where we can kind of stay until we can get an apartment. And I would always hear him say like, but I have a daughter type of thing. And even on those other phone calls for the Section 8 housing, it'd be like, but I have a daughter, or like, I have a daughter with me. Can we like proceed this much faster? Because I have somebody else with me that I'm trying to take care of, which did push things, and it did kind of help in certain situations. And he was pretty proud of that fact of like, yeah, I'm gonna use you as a bargaining chip to get our way. And like, yeah, for survival, fine. Looking on it, for survival means it's like whatever helps, right? Get us out of the situation. But when you know the full story, it's like, I wouldn't have even been in that situation. And if I wasn't in that situation, how far would he actually have gone? I think he's just been heavily reliant on manipulating people through those means of like those subtle means, those certain phrases, the lack of correcting people whenever I was mistaken as his wife so that he can feel like he's put together, has his life together. I don't know if this really pertains to the whole wife-daughter situation, but as a daughter, I felt like this was a weird thing to do, or for me to accompany on. But when I was I was over the age of 13, maybe I was 16, I was visiting him over the summer to hang out, because that's what, I wouldn't do it every summer, but I would go hang out with him over the summer if I wasn't going to band camp or something. And during this time, he had a date scheduled, but instead of either canceling the date or just leaving me at home, he insisted that I go with him. And I thought that was weird, to be honest. I started off as like a Denny's date. I wasn't sure how dates really go, right? So we were on this date. I was the third wheel essentially, and my dad is just kind of like subtly berating this woman, or like questioning her, like poking at like maybe holes in her story or something. Everybody's like trying to impress somebody on a date, and he's just like, but what about this? What about that? Just kind of like killing the fun in certain situations. And she was really trying to like bring up the mood every time. She was really holding it for the most part. And I could just feel the tension and the weirdness. And at some point, I just wanted them to talk together without me. So I kind of ventured off when we were going, I think it was like Baskin Robbins. We went to like a little food area or something for ice cream after Denny's. And so I was like, they can talk. And we were just like walking around this courtyard area. I vaguely remember it. It was kind of dark, but I leave and they're like talking. I'm like kind of listening and I hear certain things. I don't remember what they said, but I just know it was just a weird vibe. Another weird thing is just the fact that he took me on it to begin with, especially since I was over 13, old enough to stay home. But looking back on this, it did feel like more of a control thing, because if I'm within sight, then he can make sure that I'm not getting into anything or like maybe looking for stuff. I don't know what he thought I was gonna do at home alone. I had things to keep me busy aside from rummaging through his stuff. Anyway, that was just my little side tangent of the time that I went on a date with my dad. Not with my dad, but like accompanied him on a date. I don't know. Is that weird? Am I the only one that thinks that's weird? All right, it's that time. We're at the end of this segment of Wife or Daughter, episode 4. We are going to be putting this on a tier list. We're going to put this as a C tier. I don't know if this really needs a full explanation. At least for me, it felt more of a C, because it's more of like a back end type of thing. I don't know if I'm really preparing you guys for what's to come, or if I'm really just like preparing myself, like gradually building up to it, because I don't know about you, it's gonna be a lot. We might cry together. Thank you guys for watching. I know that might have been either painful to hear, cringy, I'm not really too sure, but at least hopefully it was entertaining, enthralling, whatever it may be. Maybe you're just interested in what is S tier, because there is an S tier, and what is to come. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys later. Bye bye.